there's all these perfectly good materials being thrown away that actually could be recovered. And so, why wasn't there a technology to do that? So, and I think this continues. It continues today. It's one of our great frustrations. There's always a conversation about what the problem is, as opposed to what the solution could be. And so there was heaps of people saying, there's X amount of material going to landfill. It's like the numbers got bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? At the end of the day, we should be focused on what is the solution.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. My guest today is Graham Ross. Graham is an entrepreneur and environmentalist with a world-leading focus on textile sustainability and innovation. Graham is the co-founder of BlockTexx, an Australian clean technology company that has developed pioneering technology that is the solution for hard-to-recycle clothing blends. BlockTexx is on an urgent mission to divert textile and clothing waste from landfill by remanufacturing textile waste back into the world's new products. BlockTexx has collaborated with some leading Australian fashion brands, creating an opportunity for them to take their circular economy initiatives to the next level. The work that Graham and his co-founder Adrian and their dynamic team are doing is cutting edge and leading globally. I learned so much during this chat with Graham and no doubt you will too. So let's dive in. Graham, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Fantastic. Thanks, Elizabeth. Delighted to be here.
Delighted to have you. Now, Graham, before we dive into all things BlockTexx, I'd love for you to set the scene for our audience and just share a little bit about yourself and your background before founding BlockTexx.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm late to the fashion game. I've probably been in fashion for about 8 to 9 years. Previously, I was in media for more than 20 years. Television media. So I worked my way from sort of the early stages of cameraman to eventually owning a pretty large production company in Sydney, where we made primetime TV for the networks and then also Nat Geo, Discovery, Animal Planet, that kind of stuff. My transition into the fashion news was quite indirect. My wife had an opportunity to move to Asia to take up a regional role, and so it was a great opportunity for us and our young family to move to Asia and play the expat life. But it was really important for her career, and so I was the typical TV executive. I was overweight, overworked, completely stressed, and spent most of my time smoozing clients. So it was probably a good thing for my health. While I was over there, the typical kind of need to get healthy. So I started triathlons and marathons and really quite got into that while I was at home with the kids and playing the Mr. Mum, which was an incredible opportunity to be able to have the gift of waking up every day and spending just the entire day making sure your family had everything they needed to do and just kind of having time with the kids, which I didn't have in the early days. End up in London, which was fantastic transition, but also it was a point where I was doing an awful lot of races where I was ending up with not only my racing and training kit, but all these free t-shirts from these events. And if anybody's ever done one of these events, you get these t-shirts, lots of logos, which are great. You wear them home on the plane just to show off kind of you've done the race, but that's pretty much the end of it because they're poorly made, the material's horrible, they're no good. I ended up with a wardrobe full. And so my transition was I asked a few mates, it's like, what do you do with your end of race shirts? They go, oh, they sit in a cupboard. I'm thinking, I'm racing with thousands of people. There could be a business opportunity here. And so what I did was I started to do a bit of research in regards to why does a material feel like this? And, I will shamelessly say I probably come from a different era to many people that are listening. My wife has taken a very active oversight on my clothing choices for many years, and rightly so. So knowing what fabric my material is, let alone the design, it was completely outside of my scope. But I guess what I did have was I had my TV background, and so I did a lot of research into fibers and what my clothing was made out of. And I think, to be honest, was quite frankly shocked of the impact of my small wardrobe. And, when you start looking at sort of 10 cotton items, and you can add up to sort of the water use of a small swimming pool, those kind of things just really stagger me. So I had some time on my hands, so there's a great opportunity for a business here. And so I thought, the planet's really important. So how do I build a business that can make a contribution? So did a lot of research. There's a really early stage of sustainability and people thinking about moving to alternative fibers outside of cotton and polyester. So somewhere over an 18-month period, I was able to find about 9 or 10 fibers that were sitting in warehouses or laboratories that hadn't been released yet. So it was the really early days of lensing and those sorts of companies. And then my other piece of research was not just using a single fiber. How do we put a blend of fibers to actually make a fabric that is really fit for purpose, but really aimed at the athletic wear or the runner? And so over a period of time, I got these materials through a connection, found a mill in Korea, and literally just did the Australian thing and called them up and said, "Hi, I'm Graham. You don't know who I am, but I've got all these fabrics you haven't heard of, and I want to make some fabric. They've got these fibers you never heard of, and I want to make some fabrics." And so we got some fabrics made. We did a Kickstarter campaign to see if anybody actually cared from a marketing point of view, and people did. And so from there, we made what we called the greenest t-shirt on the planet. And then we made some activewear and some run shirts. And so we launched a sportswear brand called Kasaga Athletic. And that was, we were one of the first early stage B Corps in the country. And it was a great ride. But what became really apparent to me was that I learned a lot about the industry, and it was so incredibly fragmented across the world. During the fiber manufacturer and the garment manufacturer, I would go to Asia and sit on the floor and get them to show me around the factory. I would be intimate in every stage of production just so I could understand it. And I was incredibly fascinated by it because there was so much passion in the supply chain, and it affected so many people. And so from that early stage of looking in my wardrobe, wondering what my clothing was made of, to actually being sitting on the floor and just watching this industry come together, it was just a revelation to me. And so, but what became really apparent to me was, whilst Kasaga is a fantastic brand, and I'm incredibly proud of building it, I was never going to be Nike because I was never going to have the marketing budget, and nor was I going to have the budget to be able to provide the range of clothing and styles that the consumer was looking for. And then that kind of set me on the path to kind of go, what would be next?
Wow. Okay. Let's just unpack that a little bit. You've gone from media to fitness to fashion, all while living an expat life and being Mr. Mum for a period of time. And it sounds like those research skills that you would have had in the media industry have served you well, stepping into the fashion and textile space. Is your athletic brand still going? Are you still trading?
It is, and we've got some limited items that are still around, and that'd be fantastic if anybody was interested to take a look. I tried to run both Kasaga and BlockTexx at the same time, and the reality was it just wasn't possible. I just didn't have enough time, and nor was I giving both of them the time that they needed. And so where I've looked at Kasaga is there's an incredible moment in my life. It was a huge opportunity to really dive deeply into an industry that I had no idea about, but was really incredibly fascinated about. And I find being in a supply chain really quite comforting, and really from my television background, where at times I was running teams across the world, and myself being on the ground, having to make decisions and putting myself in another industry, the same sort of problems. You've got problems to solve every day. You've got to keep consistency. There's an energy you have to keep up, and then there's also a whole lot of stuff that you just don't know what's going to hit you and you have to deal with. And so it's kind of ticking along. I would like to kick it off, but to be honest, BlockTexx has become so all-consuming and sort of almost like 10x the passion I have for Kasaga, that I've kind of left it. And but there's plenty of my friends going, are you going to do some more? What are you going to do? It's like I barely have time to sleep at the moment. So
we might need to talk about that, but before we dive into BlockTexx, I can't keep going without talking about the greenest T-shirt on the planet. I'm sure our audience's ears have pricked up on that one. What was the greenest T-shirt on the planet? What were the fibres you used?
So it was a blend of tencel and hemp fibre.
Okay. And is
And
that something unique that you created, or was that an IP that you ended up purchasing or developing? How did that come about?
We developed all the blends ourselves. It was all part of a process of understanding and working with some spinning mills in the early stages. There was importance of the tencel properties that I knew could work, but then also combining it with this hemp fibre. And putting them both together gave us both strength, breathability, and a really nice fit and fall on the body. So you could make it a little bit tighter, and it didn't feel tight. It would just fall nicely. There's anecdotes that you could wear it. It was a perfect university student shirt because you didn't need to wash it. It didn't smell. Didn't matter how much you wore it. So unfortunately, the company who makes that fibre is now pivoted into a different sphere, so that fibre is no longer available. But obviously, we all know tencel now has kind of gone on to be one of the major players in man-made cellulosics. And so this is also always very conscious of not making outlandish claims, but because both these fibres they're not artificially watered. So where they were coming from, we were able to calculate the rainfall patterns and what that meant, and then you get down to kind of what that shirt would be. And I think at the end of the day, it's always a snapshot in time as we're starting to move through businesses and we get better understanding of our life cycle assessments and what our supply chain is. Very different perspective on the supply chain now than what you did had 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's all part of it. So as long as this industry moves forward and we take that data and we're really respectful of that, I think that's really important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, fascinating background there, Graham. I'm sure all of that experience has served you well with what you're doing now. So let's dive into BlockTexx. So at BlockTexx, you're on a mission to achieve zero clothing waste to landfill, driven by your passion for the environment. So let's share the inspiration behind creating BlockTexx. And you co-founded BlockTexx with your partner, Adrian Jones. So yeah, tell us the backstory and what you're doing now, what it's all about.
Well, thank you. It was an interesting time. As I said, Kasaga was going along well. I just knew as I got to understand the industry that there was an awful lot of unwanted clothing, or there was clothing that had nowhere else to go but to landfill. And that didn't make any sense because I was physically paying for fibre, fabric and garments to be made out of my back pocket. So I understood what the sunk cost. And so it's kind of like, well, there's all these perfectly good materials being thrown away that actually could be recovered. And so, why wasn't there a technology to do that? So, and I think it continues today. And it's one of our great frustrations. There's always a conversation about what the problem is as opposed to what the solution could be. And so there was heaps of people saying, there's X amount of material going to landfill. It's like the numbers got bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? At the end of the day, we should be focused on what is the solution. And so I went, there's a huge opportunity for a solution. What does that look like? And there was a couple of early stage iterations with BlockTexx involving marketplaces, definitely bringing blockchain in so we could have traceability, so we could validate that going forward. Did some early stage work in mechanical recycling to see what that looks like, and worked with CSIRO in the early days. I was also, like all of us, bouncing around many of the sustainability events, and I happened to spend some time with a designer called Tonya Bastian, who said to me, you must meet a friend of mine, Adrian Jones, who is he's a CEO and known him from London. He might find your kind of idea an interest. And so we got together, and he had a similar idea, but from a different perspective. And I guess he had the frustration of selling an awful lot of clothes and then having an impact on the environment, and maybe he was looking for, as he calls it, his atonement for his retail sales. And so we got together and went, okay, my background as an entrepreneur, worked for myself all my life, and this is my sixth or seventh business in 2 or 3 industries, and his career in the rag trade. So I guess in the early stages, and it's kind of certainly evolved since then, but I had a lot of questions, and he kind of knew where the skeletons were buried. And so there was an opportunity for us to take those two together and start BlockTexx.
Amazing. It just sounds like such a brave leap into the unknown is what I'm hearing. But let's share with everyone what has come out the other side, the technology that you've got, and we can see the scene behind you. You're right in amongst it. So over the past 5 years, BlockTexx has developed, patented, and commercialized your chemical separation technology. So it's called soft separation of fiber technology. So let's break that down for our audience. What is it, and what does it do, and what's the positive impact on the other side?
Yeah, it's so as you mentioned in your previous question, we've got this motto: no textiles to landfill. And look, it's a fairly lofty goal, but you kind of go, you don't go, I want to go to Mars, and you got to set big goals to bring everybody on. And when we started BlockTexx just over 6.5 years ago, what we're talking about now and what you can see behind me was a drawing on a piece of paper. There was a whole lot of people thinking that this could be possible. And so what we had to do was we had to go through a bunch of process to understand, as I said, we did some mechanical recycling, and we turned that into some fluff, which was great. And then we turned that into a yarn, but there's no spinning capabilities here in Australia. And so we would just end up with containers full of fluff that we'd have to send to Asia or Europe. So that didn't make any sense to us. But we also knew that there was an opportunity in chemical separation. And I guess the reason we focused on chemical separation was the predominant mixture of predominant fibers in the world, which is about 86%, is polyester and cotton. And then thanks to fast fashion, the blending of fibers became, the way we manufacture. And so we had some early success in the laboratory with wool and polyester separation, but wool is about 3% of the world's fibers. And so if you're going to talk about no textiles to landfill and looking at making a global business, a global impact, you needed to tackle the 2 biggest fibers. And it's also important if you're trying to raise money. An investor kind of goes, well, what's your addressable market, and how do you achieve that? So that all kind of tied up. And so we are lucky to work with across a range of universities here in Australia, but then also overseas, nobody had the answer, but we just had to kind of have a question that we need to answer to kind of move through the list of questions that we had. And eventually we were able to separate polyester and cotton in the laboratory. And what was really important for us is there was existing technology that burnt off the cotton to get to the polyester, or dissolved the polyester to get to the cotton. It didn't make any sense to us to make to build a technology that actually created a waste. And so the real tenement to us was we had to recover both of those materials. And then we didn't want to do any more harm to the business. So not only did we're trying to create a world first separation technology to a serious problem, but we also wanted to do it from a really, really strong environmental point of view. So not only was it already difficult in the first place, we just added layers of difficulty on top of that. But that was really important, and we've obviously that's played out really importantly, because our output out of our factory is wastewater. And so that we've got 2 materials. We've got materials coming in, and we've got 2 materials going out. So the separation of fiber technology is a chemical separation process. We've developed it here. We have the IP. We're able to do it in a laboratory, and then in conjunction working with Queensland University of Technology, who happen to have a small, not quite small, large bagasse manufacturing plant next to the Mackay sugar mill. And so we turned that into a textile recycling facility, including buying our first 2 pieces of equipment, which was a washing machine and a dryer. we were up there many trips. We're supported by a lot of brands locally. We're also supported by Apple and Patagonia in the early days who sent us material. And so we effectively just tried to see whether we could separate all the spectrum of textiles, not just our fashion clothing. And over a period of time, we developed a technology to be able to do that. But we're only working at 5 kilogram batches, so it's still really rudimentary, but also really quite agricultural. Like our first washing process was 6 20-litre buckets and gloved hands in gloves, doing the washing process to see what our recovery process was like. So it's been really hands-on. Adrian and I have been, whilst neither of us have chemical degrees or mechanical engineering degrees, we have been hands-on in every process. When we took over the factory here, I was the only one here, so I had to go and get a forklift license because it just needed to be done. Now, there's obviously more people doing that, but the whole business has been started from an idea on a napkin sort of 6.5 years ago, which now hangs in our boardroom, to a functioning commercial scale textile recycling plant. But every stage of that, Adrian and I have led the design, the engineering, the manufacturing, to drive the smart people we have in our business to continue to exceed their expectations and to continue to accelerate the opportunity here in the business, which is, like I said, was an incredibly exciting time to spend time with my kids in Singapore and London. But the work I'm doing with my team now is almost the same. Just watching them grow and achieve from what we've set up is great. So simple overhead from a process point of view. We take a bed sheet. Let's say it's 50% polyester, 50% cotton. It will be shredded before it arrives here. So when it arrives in our factory, we basically have 200 kilogram bags of shredded material, because this is effectively a manufacturing plant. So the kind of the connection to textiles kind of stop at the gate. And from there, we go through a separation process. So we use chemistry and some other conditions to unlock the cotton from the polyester. And from there, then they go through a washing process where we recover the cotton from the polyester, because we've broken it down into a cellulose material. Then they go into their own remanufacturing processes, because that's effectively what we do. We turn them into new products. So the cellulose goes through a dewatering process, and then that's turned into basically a cellulose paste. It looks like a pizza dough. Because it's hydrated with water within the cells. And so that's a great opportunity for the product to go into agricultural products, to go into building materials, and also into packaging. And the polyester is then dried, and then it just goes through a melt extrusion process and it's turned back into pellets. And so then that is the building blocks to go into injection molding, or to go back into fiber, which is what we're doing today. So, like I said, we've got only wastewater, and we get about a 95% recovery rate for everything that comes in. We lose a little bit of the cellulose because it's such small particles, it's kind of lost in the pipes. But so it's effectively, as the buzzword is, circular economy. It comes in unwanted and it goes out as 2 brand new products.
Is this technology available elsewhere in the world? So what you're doing here in Australia, where else does this exist, or something similar?
Yeah, so luckily for all of us in this industry, there is a couple of players, but we're all kind of at that really early stage. We're just scaling our plant to from our stage 1 capacity of 4,000 tonnes per annum to, we're now, by the end of the month, we'll be at a 10,000 tonne per annum capacity. Now, that's the largest plant in the world. Everybody's taken a little bit of a different route, but and also the technologies. I think basically the chemistry at the basic building blocks is probably foundationally pretty similar, but from there we've built a different way of doing things. And so there's a company in the US called Circ. They're focused very much on fashion fiber. There's another company, so we're only talking about blended fabrics here at the moment. A company called Worn Again in the UK. They're still yet to get to a pilot stage. And then there's a company also from the US called Ambercycle. But Ambercycle is really focused on polyester. Circ is doing both, and Warn again is still kind of getting to that next pilot stage. So excitingly for Australia, we are at this stage leading the world in separation of polyester cotton blends. But we've also taken a very little different route to the market to our other competitors or collaborators is probably a better way to put it. Because there's no spinning capabilities here in Australia, we've also looked at many other industries for our product. And so we haven't just gone, we have to go back into fibre. We've looked at, we can go back into the built environment. We can go into injection molding and make products, so like sunglasses, a whole bunch of things with injection molded. And we've also looked at agriculture and packaging. And so there's a huge opportunity for us in Australia from an industrial point of view, but then also we've got the added opportunity to go back into fibre and back into fashion.
So you're not limited. Look, first and foremost, congratulations. You've just shared with us that you're leading in this space globally, and you shared that. So you're going from that 4,000 tons to 10,000 tons, which is the biggest plant in the world. Yeah,
that is at the stage. Phenomenal. And look, hopefully we won't be the only ones, and I'm sure the other players are all planning to get to the next stage. But we focused on getting to a commercial solution. Like I said earlier, we started 5 kilogram batches in the pilot facility, and then this facility does up to 1,000 kilograms per batch. So it was a huge jump from 5 kilograms to 1,000 kilograms. So 1,000 kilograms for just to kind of give you a perspective, that's like the weight of a small car. And we move that around our plant, and so we've taken the perspective of we need to prove that our technology could work at a commercial scale as opposed to going and making a capsule collection, which some of the other players have decided that was a better route to market. But I guess the challenge we have is, well, not the challenge, it goes back to what I said earlier, was we didn't focus on what the problem was, we focused on what the solution was. So it's kind of like, well, we've built this solution to work at 10,000 tons, right? So now it can then scale from here.
Yeah.
But there's a solution that exists. It's not a drawing on a piece of paper. It's not a whole bunch of presentations at a conference. It's actually a functioning plant with all the challenges that a functioning plant has. And I think that goes back to Adrian's background in the supply chain, but also my background in the supply chain, that those kind of knowledge got combined back into building a plant first and then exploiting that later.
Yeah. Amazing. Again, there's so much to unpack there, but I think before we kind of go more into the technical side, from a fashion brand perspective, I'd love to share what that journey looks like with our audience. So you mentioned how with the sheets, they're shredded before they come in. So I know you've done some collaborations with fashion brands like Basic, for example, and there's other groups like the Workwear Group, General Pants, Lowe's, Up Apparel, and there's more. Maybe we can use Basic as an example. When those garments come in, what happens next? Do you take the physical garment or does the brand need to do something first?
Yeah, no, good question. And we again had to, because of our regionality, had to look at a unique marketplace. We run 2 businesses. What we call the before the gate business and from the gate business. And the gate is the physical gate at the start of our factory. And so what we had to build out, because it didn't exist in Australia, was we built out an Australia-wide collection and logistics business to be able to access the material across the country, to make it cost effective for companies like Basic and other fashion retailers to work with us. Because, to be honest, costs to send things to landfill aren't really high enough. And so as a commercial decision, businesses say, well, I can send it to landfill for X, why would I send it to you for Y? So we've built a business model that can meet or match those kind of costs. So when Adrian and I first started this business, we kind of went, if we can go to somebody in the marketplace and say, you've got 2 choices, you can send it to landfill for the same cost that you can send to us, and then you can claim and you can be part of this revolution. textile recycling, and that was a really easy sell into the marketplace.
Yeah.
So Australia-wide logistics. We also have set up now through our social impact partners what we call decommissioning centres across each state. And we work with the NDIS sector, we work with the Big Issue, we're also working with correctional centres in a couple of states where those particular garments that may have materials that we don't recycle, so metal zips, nylon buttons, a whole lot of other things, high-vis, that they're removed. And the social impact part for us has been really important because in the early stages, we had a lot of people saying, why don't we get robots and do that sort of stuff? But we had this whole workforce that was actually looking for year-round committed work. But also importantly, the workforce were also used to turning unwanted clothing into rags. And so what we've actually worked with them is to upskill those particular clients to remove only the things you only need to remove. And so we get the max amount of garment out there, but we also are able to guarantee work every week, month on month. And so that's been incredibly, and that continues to grow as we grow our business. That part of that business grows, and so it's a collection from the retailer. Then if it needs to be decommissioned, what we'll probably do at the initial stage is we'll either get a product pack from the retailer, or we'll get them to send us some samples, and we'll do a couple of tests to understand what the fibre composition is, but also to look at the garment and say, okay, this garment is 80% recyclable. If you change this, this, and this, now it's 100%. And so we give that retailer the feedback. And so whilst they may cost for the decommissioning cost might be at the start. If they redesign the garment, well, then that decommissioning cost goes away. Now it's got even cheaper to recycle, right? Yeah. It makes more sense. It's also smart for us because we're getting material that's, as we start to roll out our product passport, our brands will have what we'll call, a BlockTexx approved logo. And so we won't need to do that testing because we can see on the logo that is a BlockTexx approved garment, and then it can be recycled.
Yeah.
So it's always about, for us, making recycling just really easy. Let's stop making things hard. Let's stop worrying about what hasn't been done. Let's just get those solutions underway and keep improving those. And so once it's been collected from the retailer and we've done the tests, that can either be through a handheld infrared spectrometry. So you basically send some waves down onto the garment, and depending on the time it takes to come back, the database will tell you what fibre composition is, or we'll bring it into a laboratory. We've got 3 scientists and 2 laboratories where we can chemically pull things apart if there's some difference from that point of view. We'll give them a feedback as to what will be recycled, what the costs, and then it will then go from the decommissioning into our shredding facility and shred it into the bags, and it will come to us. And then, as I said really earlier, that we've built a blockchain process underneath all this. So not only were we building a chemical separation process, but we also built a blockchain to provide traceability and provenance, not only for ourselves, but most importantly, the most important word for us is trust, that our customers can trust that we're going to recycle their garments, and then the companies who are buying our recycled product can trust that it's recycled. And so we're able to not only say, hand on heart, we're good guys, you can trust us, but we've also got a blockchain to prove where it's being collected, what the process it's gone into, and what it's been turned into. And so that just then kickstart, because that didn't exist. We've got blockchain into, from the supply chain to manufacture and then to sale, but the end of life, there was nothing there. So we built that ourselves. And what we're able to do now is that we can give good detailed reports back to our customers of what we've collected from them, but then also we can start to apply our life cycle assessment data in regards to what their CO2 emissions offsets are and any other environmental benefits from that point of view. And then, again, moving into a digital product passport, which is what the EU is talking about now. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. And I think talking about Basic and the other wonderful brands we're working with, They don't have a lot. You know, they make really good quality garments, and they last a long time. But eventually, like anything, garments wear out, and then now we're providing them with the opportunity to recycle them. And I think that's part of, retail's always been of interest to us, but where we've originally started is in the commercial sector, working with hotels, hospitals, laundries, and workwear companies. And the reason we looked at those guys is because up until BlockTexx, they had no other end-of-life solution apart from burn it or bury it. You know, no brand wants to see, you know, their label in a riot in some other foreign country, right? So we are able to provide to those guys a really clear opportunity to, at their end of life, then it's going to get recycled, and something they didn't have before. And so, you know, one of our strongest or foundation partners is Alsco Laundries, and they've been an incredible supporter, not only for the volumes that they give us, but the continual support of a big brother or a big sister as we start to scale our technology. They don't overwhelm us, but they've been able to grow with us as we've gone. And then what we've also been able to provide to them is, like every brand we work with, everybody thinks they know how much unwanted textiles they have, but ultimately, when you start to go through the process, you discover a whole lot more. I mean, we did a project with a government organisation, and they thought they had 5 tonne, and we ended up collecting 43 tonne from across Australia.
Wow. Yeah, until you start digging a little bit deeper, as you said, you don't know what you're sitting on. I am really interested, Graham, in what percentage you have of fashion clients, because you've mentioned the hotels, hospitality, workwear sectors, and there's most likely others. What percentage is fashion? You've also mentioned like bedding and sheets. So, but if we'll talk about the garment business, so basic, there's a few others I mentioned earlier. What percentage of your clients are in the garment business at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's really early stages, and as I said, we have focused on the commercial sector, and they've given us the bulk. And so the other attractive point to us tackling the early stage commercial sector is you kind of know what you're getting. Whereas moving into the retail sector, there's a lot more testing and trialing, and there's different types of fusings. There's a myriad of challenges. And so as an early stage business, you have to be really careful you don't add more problems to what you already have. And so we're just starting to move into this phase. So Basics, one of our first. We will, by the time this podcast goes in, we will have announced our partnership with Elk, which we're really delighted with. So we're starting to move in. There's a few more kind of coming out as we go. But I guess from the commercial sector, if you think from a retail point of view, we've been doing some great work with Sheraton across the country. I think we've got 89 stores where you can do a take-back scheme. And we're collecting about 9 tonne a month from that process, which is fantastic. It really engages the customer, and then it also shows the green credentials of the brand like Sheraton, who continues to drive this. And so they're the sorts of things. So I think as we've now got the bulk of material coming into our plant, and we've got our process up and working, where we can start working closer with the fashion brands, where they'll need a little bit more bespoke relationship, where we as a company are a bit more mature. We've got some more capacity to deal with that. I think take-back schemes, I think, are a great value, and they've worked successfully so far. Working in all sorts of initiatives as to how we kind of engage their customers. We engage the wider audience. We are doing some more work with in the supply chain, so taking some offcuts from the Australian manufacturers who, didn't often have the opportunity to take that elsewhere. So these things are all kind of starting, but then also importantly coming back and providing really clear design advice back into those brands, because we know what it takes to recycle. We know what's recyclable and what's not recyclable. We're already actively working with fusing companies across the world to give them advice in regards to how do they change the chemical properties of the materials they're making so it can be recycled. And so the work we're doing today is not, it's been more a capacity issue. more than anything else. But we are really now starting to put our heads up and go, okay, there's been fashion brands who are really keen to work with us, but also, like I said, a lot of the fashion brands didn't have a lot of waste. And so it was kind of like, okay, just store them in a corner and we'll come and get them, because, we're processing a ton every batch. And so, 20 kilograms is no good to me.
No.
The volumes are the really important thing. So I think it's a really exciting time for us to now start to move, from that across all those sectors and provide a real solution to all those sectors, and not be, I guess, agnostic in regards to who our customers are.
Yeah. Well, firstly, congratulations on your partnership with ALK. That is exciting news. I've had Marnie Godding from ALK on the podcast, and also had Dr. Vibe, so her head of sustainability, on a panel at the Global Sourcing Expo, which is where you and I met in Sydney. So I think that that's so exciting. I mean, ALK are consistently taking their responsible business journey to the next level. So it's kind of no surprise, actually, that they're the next partner of yours. So we can't wait to, see that all unfold. I think what you mentioned there, Graham, about the insights that brands will gain in terms of circular design, I think that that's really powerful, because it all starts with, the ideation of the product before, you even make a sample. So I think the more information that the designers and the product developers in, an organisation have in how to do it better, how to think about that kind of deconstruction of the garment before it's even made is pretty powerful. So I think that's, again, there's always so many benefits of partnerships. It's not just one dimensional, but I think that that's a really significant point. So for fashion brands that are tuning in, and I'm sure their ears are pricked up in terms of how they could get involved, you've spoken about some volume there. What kind of criteria would they have to meet, or what position, stage of business would they need to be at to perhaps reach out to you and start a conversation?
Yeah, we're always welcoming a conversation. We return any approaches. The first thing is we're focused on polyester cotton, 100% polyester, 100% cotton, or man-made cellulosics. So they're our preferred fibres. We have got some other technologies that will can address some of the other fibres, but at operating our plant, polyester cotton's the most important. So if the brands have got lycra or spandex, and it might be in hems, or it's not kind of as part of the fibre matrix, then we can obviously decommission that, and then they can get the recycled. Volumes are really important. We've kind of got a bit of a line in the sand in regards to sort of 500 kilograms is the minimum that we'll take. Now, it's an opportunity for brands to either collaborate with other like-minded brands to get to that point, or to start a conversation with, to say, okay, you don't have 500 kilograms now, but in 6 months you will have, and then we can put them into the schedule. As I said, we've got a 10,000 tonne capacity, but that's it. I can't add any more to that at this stage, and so we're continuing looking at a supply chain going forward. We've got, and as you can imagine, the workwear companies, change over at different times of the year, so you get a bulk amount. So having an early conversation with fashion brands is really important, just to understand what the volumes are, understand how we work as a process, and then to see obviously whether from a business model that stacks up with them. But we're trying to be a solution for everybody. We're not trying to be exclusive, but you do have to have some rules around the business, otherwise you have. We're continually delighted with consumers or householders calling us up saying, I've just swapped out all my curtains and I don't want them to go to landfill, can you recycle them? And look, you'd love to, but my production team would kill me if I took in every kind of stray, so to speak. But we do know from our Give a Sheet for the Planet project that we work with councils across the country, that consumers really do want to recycle. They want an onshore recycling solution, and they want to know that when they give over their materials, that it is going to be recycled. And so we see that, and I know that is also an opportunity with the fashion brands. So BlockTexx is a member of the Australian Fashion Council, and we're talking very closely with them in regards to what potential initiatives we can do together, and that's really exciting for us. And I guess where we've been from to date is we've been so busy building the equipment that you can see behind me that there hasn't been enough time to do all the other stuff that you want to do. And also, as an early stage business, you've got a limited budget, so you've got to kind of, your marketing dollar is kept pretty tight to grow the business. But we're now at that next stage to really engage the industry and say, okay, you've got a world-class, state-of-the-art facility, world-leading business model here in your backyard. How do we all get involved as an industry to really show the world what it looks like to not only do great design, manufacture great garments, a strong industry that supports itself, but also at the end of life, we've got a solution here that is either going back into products such as coat hangers or back into retail fittings, so they can show their circularity. But also, as I said, BlockTexx is already working in fibre development in both Asia and Europe, and so it's a lofty goal to get fibre recycled in Australia and the fibre back into garments in Australia. But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, so many exciting developments there, Graham. Again, congratulations. I guess it's what the industry has been waiting for, and you're leading the way in this space. So I'd love to dive behind the scenes into your team, your HQ. You're obviously at the facility there right now, but can you share with our audience what your whole ecosystem looks like in terms of your HQ, your team, and your offices around Australia?
Yeah, fantastic. I took over the factory. We took over the factory just over 3 years ago, at the height of the global pandemic. I came up here with overnight bags, a car, and my wife to pick up the keys to the facility, and then within 2 weeks, the borders were shut. And Adrian, my business partner, was stranded down in Sydney, and I was up here. And that was 3.5 years ago, and I have not gone back to Sydney because the business had kind of needed some consistency here, and I was here. So we were really supported by the local Logan Council. They helped. They're really important in regards to helping us navigate all the red tape effectively, and so that was really good. And from here, we've started to build out. We've currently got a full-time staff of 19. There's 16 of us here in the facility and 3 remotely. What I'm most proud about is that we have 7 nationalities in that full-time staff of 19. A quarter of the staff are women, but importantly, more than half the executive team have women. We've been able to track a really strong not only technical skill set, but also a really good business acumen. And I mentioned Tonya Bastian earlier. Tonya now heads our design and marketing team. And so not only did she introduce Adrian and I, but she's one of our key executive team members. And so for anybody who's in retail who's interested, Tonya is always available for a conversation. Tonya used to have her own brand in London. She's been in the retail industry all her life and transitioning into sustainable design and sustainable recycling. There's so much knowledge in there. Our GM of operations and science approached us from the UK, and he's via South Africa and a few other things. So he's brought an immense amount of knowledge here. One of our lead scientists is from Pakistan. She used to work in a textile fiber mill in Pakistan, and so she's really unique because she used to make fiber, and now she helps not only recycle but actually working towards making future fiber. So the opportunity BlockTexx is providing for these really smart people who've decided that BlockTexx, what we're doing as a business, is really important, is to be the next generation of the textile manufacturing industry, because they're bringing the old industry and the new industry and putting together. And I think that's incredibly exciting. But I guess across that whole 19 people, there's a real core tenement, and it's kind of one of the key tenements we run as a business. We talk about being pioneers, because it gives us the opportunity to believe in what we're trying to do, but also gives us the permission to forgive ourselves if something doesn't quite work. And, BlockTexx every day has a whole lot of unknown unknowns in it. And so as we work through each day, we're knowing more, and we're working through any of the challenges. But by the very nature of every bag that comes into our plant is all post-consumer, it's all had its own life. Has it been in the mines? Has it been in the banks? Has it been on catwalks? And so it already has a story before it arrives to us. And what we've got to try and do is sort of understand that story, and then be able to turn that back into those products that we want to put out. So the team's incredibly important. We will scale in the next 6 months. There'll probably be another 10 people working here as we scale more shifts and we bring on some more capacity. And then I guess importantly, as I said, in our decommissioning sector, we've got over 200 clients working part-time, which is exciting. That will expand as we continue. The work we're doing with the Big Issue in regards to the Women Initiative is really groundbreaking. We're hoping to scale that out of Victoria into other states. And we're currently working in 3 Queensland Correctional Service Centres, supporting the inmates in there to gain skills, but also to gain a foothold to move forward into future employment. And so just by doing business, we've got the opportunity to do good, not only for the environment, but actually from a social impact point of view, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I was just thinking that through as you were speaking. The social impact, side of things is next level, and the opportunities that you're creating, as you said, for your amazing team members. And now the growth phase is going to create more opportunities for employment. So you're providing such a high impact solution, Graham. I think we should touch a little bit on the problem and just mention some of the statistics around landfill issues, not only here in Australia, but globally. That might just put into context for our audience. I guess how I don't think you'll be short of business over the journey is the way that I see it.
No, you're correct. So in Australia, the figures bounce between about 800,000 to 1 million tonnes of textiles into landfill each year. And we've been at this for 6 years. So there's sort of 6 million tonnes. I guess globally, they're predicting about 140 million tonnes by 2030 going into landfill. The numbers are a bit rubbery in regards to manufacture, but we're making about 130 billion garments per year, 120, 130 billion garments. And that's been year on year in the 6 years we've been at it. But obviously, polyester is the most manufactured fibre in the world, about 60 to 65%. Polyester is made from a plastic called PET. So it's the same material that your drink bottles or our takeaway containers are made out of. What's going to landfill is a tragedy, and we need to divert that. But I kind of always look at, if we made the material out of recycled material, we're already fixing half the problem from the start. So PET globally, 70 million tonnes is manufactured each year. So 70 million tonnes, and we've been at this for 6 years. So 500 million tonnes of PET has been manufactured since we started BlockTexx. About 20 million to 25 million tonnes goes into drink bottles and plastic containers. And so you think about us as a consumer, nobody would ever think about throwing away a plastic bottle. You would always recycle it, right? And the figures are hard to understand, but it's somewhere between 30 or 35% globally recycled, which is great. So out of the other remaining 50 million tonnes, that goes in textiles. What we sit on, what we walk on, what we wear. And the numbers are kind of thrown around. We're talking about 1% is recycled. And so when you think about that, that's where the opportunity is. It's like, why does the textile industry not behave like the beverage industry? Like why have we not got enough initiatives to get this going? So from where we look at is polyester is often blended with a fibre, and often that's cotton. So if we can get the cotton off and get that turned into a product, and then get the polyester either back into a industrial product or getting it back into fibre, so we're not making raw PET to go into polyester fibre, then we're starting to reduce the impact for a start. And then we've got to start to kind of close that loop from the end of life. And so I think there's a couple of levers that got to happen all over the world. Australia's not bad. I mean, everybody could be better. We need to look at landfill costs. If it's cheap to throw away, then there's less motivation to be motivated to recycle it. We need to support recycling technologies like BlockTexx and others to be able to get to scale. We need to, as a government, who's one of the biggest procurers in the world or in the country, look at mandatory recycling procurement targets. So we've got there's a market. As I often say, the government grant money is fantastic, but grant money is not what grows a business. Outtake deals is really important to a business because you can go and raise your money off the back of those outtake deals. And so what does that look like either from a government point of view? What does it look like from a fashion brand point of view? How do we get Australian retailers to start to buy into not only the recycling of unwanted textiles, but also looking at what does it look like from the procurement point of view for either industrial type products like coat hangers and fittings, but also ultimately getting back to that fibre and how does that fibre get back into our country. So then we're starting to reduce that landfill here, but also we're getting that recycled material back into our products. And we all know that consumers are there. Consumers want good quality at the right price. And if it's recyclable, well, that's another little tick. But also we have to make it that it's affordable for the consumers to get to that. And that's exactly where we've come from.
Some great insights and a great message there, Graham. There's been a lot that's happened over the last 10 years in this space. If you were to pull out your crystal ball, where do you see this all going in the next 10 years?
Oh, well, we've always said that we weren't just building a factory, we were here to build an industry. And so I think the textile recycling industry is only just getting started. The world often wants us to be the Tesla, but we're kind of the Model T Ford. So we've got to give us a few years to get started. But what we've been able to achieve in 3 years to go from an empty warehouse during a global pandemic and lockdown and all that kind of carry on to now scaling to a 10,000 tonne capacity plant with consistency, with feedstock coming in and outtakes going out is incredible. And so we need to scale the industry. So we need all players in the marketplace to get involved in that. We need the right legislation to help support that. So we discourage waste. We encourage recycling. We encourage the purchase of recycled material, and then we go. So I think we're going to see the change. I think I do know at this present moment we're in a huge amount of influx. The direction the policies coming out of the European Union have not had the positive impact that we hope for. But equally, we as an industry have to transition from, I guess, an export-focused business to a circular economy, recycling, right design, not overproduction type of business. So I think in the 10 years, I see those levers being reduced. I don't see it being sold, but I see there'll be a lot more end-of-life solutions and a lot more recycled product. I'll see legislation aligned to that as an industry and recognise it, as we've seen in paper and glass and plastics. And textiles has just been late to the party. But if you kind of look at those as a guidance or sort of a North Star, then that's kind of where I think we can go. And I think personally what I will see is not only the 19 people we have here, but many more have come into an industry and actually really exceeded and turned that into a career just like any other industry. And that's what I'm most excited about, that the people who work with us are incredibly inspired to grow this industry. And then the partners, either through a supply chain or an outtake, are equally seeing the benefit of being involved in a innovative, future-thinking industry that deals with the problem that they've created in a economic and environmental way that benefits all of us as a society. And that would be really cool. And hopefully, I'm still enjoying a nice restrained glass of wine with my business partner.
In between doing all the fitness stuff, running those marathons and getting involved in the triathlons.
Yes.
Graham, powerful insights again there. For fashion brands tuning in, sitting there thinking, what can I do? How do I move forward? What would your top tips be just so that they can take that step forward towards a circular economy?
Yeah, the first thing is to start. Just start something. Like what I often advise people is kind of find the big problem, right? Identify it. Like this is our big problem. We've got X amount of waste. We don't know what to do with it. Okay, identify it. But you don't have to solve that. Like set a time frame. So okay, we're going to solve that in 12 months, right? So give yourself permission to say, okay, we've got this. We don't have a solution yet. We need to kind of look at externally what the solutions are. We need to look internally as to how we operate, and then set very clear bites into reducing that. Engage your team to hear what they've got to say. So it's pointless being the CEO saying, okay, tomorrow we're going to go 100% sustainable, and everybody goes, what does that mean? How do we achieve that? So understand what they see as sustainable, understand what they see as important. Look at it from an economic point of view. Can you afford to do it? What does it look like from a time frame point of view? We all want to be better. We all want, bigger houses, better holidays. But the reality is there is a budget to work within. So identify what that budget and to set sustainable impact or changes as part of your budget, and don't make it just movable. Like set it as a non-negotiable, and basic elk. That's how they operate. They set that's just built into their business.
Yeah.
And that's how you achieve things, because you've already made a commitment, and then you've got buy-in from your staff. And then I guess talk to companies like BlockTexx. Understand what we do, understand how we can fit in. You may not fit into us at this present moment, but you may in 6 months and 12 months time, but that gives you time to be ready for that. Also gives us time to scale our business.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And then just equally engage in the industry. So obviously the AFC is really important. Engage with the government in regards to what they're doing. Engage with your suppliers to understand what material you're getting. Because some of our garments, depending on how they're made, there could be like a 30% loss if it's got a whole lot of fluoros or it's got particular fusings. Now, demanding your supply chain to change those things is really important, because that actually has an impact on the cost of your recycling, but also the impact of your business in operations. And so they're really simple changes to make. Often you purchase trims is kind of like, the buttons can be whatever color. I don't care as long as they're, half a cent, right? But understanding what are they? Like asking those questions and just kind of pushing back into that supply chain. I think that's really important. And then I said, finally, as you mentioned, as you design it, what does it look like at end of life? What does it look like when you pull it apart? And can you pull it apart? And then start to think about that from the start. So, okay, we're designing this. Okay, this will be an 80% recycled garment, and then maybe another line will be 100%, right? So now you can kind of, not everything has to be 100%. And it might not be achievable, but at least you can sit there and look at your matrix of all your product lines and go, okay, we're 65% recyclable. So next year we're going to aim for it to be 70% recyclable, right? It's always incremental. And then equally, as technologies scale, like BlockTexx, we may be able to provide other solutions to your fiber mix. And then, so everybody has to work together at this early stage. But it is incredibly exciting,
part, isn't it? It's working together. No one can do this on their own.
No. And there's recycling technologies that are probably better being mechanically recycled than chemically recycled. But unless you engage with those end-of-life solutions, then how do you know what you're aiming for? And I think that's part of the challenge. So I guess I could go back to my naivety when I started in this industry, where I would go and sit on factory floors and just get people to tell me how everything worked. I think we're almost back at that stage again. It's like we need to understand, what does this industry look like going forward? And the more we can engage and have conversations, the less frightening it is for people. And I think that's part of us as human beings. We do get we can't change because we don't know what that looks like. But the more we have conversations about what the possibility could be, then it's less daunting. And I'm like I said, it was an empty warehouse 3 years ago. What we've achieved in this time, and it's only been from hard work and really clear goals. There's been no magic here. It's just so everybody can achieve that.
What are you most proud of, Graham? What do you most, when you look back over the journey so far, based on you and Adrian and the entire team, what stands out as, okay, this has been a moment in time?
That's a really good question. I think first and foremost, the partnership I have with my business partner, that's been that I'm pretty proud of that. We've come at this from different angles, and we've built a really strong partnership that is built around respect, trust, enthusiasm. We're very robust in our conversations. You know, neither one of us are left in any kind of there's no ambiguity in our relationship. So I think that's been really important, and that's given a really strong foundation for us to grow out the team. It's been very hard for, it's hard when you're a founder to then let more people in, because you've got to relinquish a bit of your control. And so that's a hard thing. When you've got two founders, it's even worse. So I think that's great. The scaling our business from that 5 kilogram to that 1,000 kilograms. So building this 7,000 litre pressure vessel that does the smart stuff. And the first time we opened the doors and the separated materials fell out, that was incredibly proud, because we didn't know whether it was going to work effectively, because we couldn't trial it at any smaller scale. And so really proud of that. And I think the final thing is, now that I'm seeing product going out, I'm seeing product going in for people taking things and making it work. And, injection molder saying the material you're sending me is incredible. It's world leading. I have never worked with material like this, and the environmental benefits are incredibly valuable to my business. And so that's great. And then hopefully, next time we talk, there'll be a whole conversation about the fibre development we've been able to get to, and what does that mean for the industry.
Can't wait for that. So much to be proud of there, Graham, and so much more to come, which is so exciting. Now, to wrap up, Graham, I would love to know what excites you most about the future of BlockTexx and its role within the fashion and textile space.
I think we've finally got to the point to give ourselves the permission that we are a leader in the textile resource recovery industry. It's been a challenge to date because we're at the bottom of the world. A lot of the noise comes out of Europe and US. The industry is now starting to see Asia, where most of the manufacturing happens, as a potential future hub, or the future hub. So BlockTexx, as being, an exemplar of circular economy practices, a business that does what it says it's going to do, and a business that is continually evolving. That every year we're better than what we were the year before, and we've had a greater influence both in the environment, but also from a social impact point of view. And that's something that we work together as a team every day, every week, every month. But I see us doing that, and then from here, the opportunity from us to take our technology to the world. That's the next stuff that we're working on. To take the technology and to start to really solve some of the challenges. Countries that have got much more textile waste than we have, but equally integrating that solution directly into a supply chain. So you're recycling on one end, and the conveyor is taking the pellets and is going into a spinning mill next door. That for me is that's the goal, because we've now really started to revolutionize an industry that effectively revolutionized the world during the industrial age. And so I see this point of both resource recovery combined with digitization of the industry, the two big changes the industry is going to face. And it's a huge opportunity for everybody to get involved in now. And I'm incredibly proud that we're going to lead this from Australia. And I think that's a great opportunity for our Australian industry.
Such an exciting journey. Congratulations again, Graham, to you, Adrian, your entire team. What a phenomenal journey it's been. And it sounds like you're only just getting started. For those who are tuning in and would love to get involved, what's the best way for them to connect with you and BlockTexx?
Yeah, the best way is to go to our website, so www.blocktexx.com, and you'll see the factory in operations. There's a really good breakdown of the entire process. You'll see the team, some of the work we've done. That's the first way to do it, and you can connect from there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so always welcome connections from people and dropping me a line from that point of view. That's probably the best way to do it. You can send me an email on graham@blocktexx.com, GRAHAM @blocktexx.com, although I'm notoriously hopeless at replying. So I apologize straight away from that point of view. But I will get you there. But equally, if you contact the business, and then one of the team will reach out and go from there, and that's probably a great way of going as well.
That's okay. I'm pretty sure our audience has got some sound stalking skills, so they'll get hold of you eventually. Thank you, Graham. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time today, sharing those powerful insights on the BlockTexx journey, and for the amazing work, the globally leading work that you're doing in our industry. Thank you, and we can't wait to see what's next and can't wait to share this with our industry.
Thanks, Liz. That was great. It was almost cathartic. Thank you so much.
I should have got you to lie down on the couch actually with my clipboard. Thank you, Graham. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook @FashionEquipped. And if you'd like to find out more about our Start Your Fashion Business program and your mentor collective, head to our website fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.
This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.